Good day everyone, and welcome once again to the Quantum Cafe and the Interstellar Lounge with your host here, the Cosmic Messenger, aka Derek Pennant. I'm a Reiki Master Teacher, Light Body Technician, Tamiana Practitioner, Aura Scanning Specialist, and Metaphysician. Hope everybody's having a good day out there with all the cosmic frequencies that have been going on lately. I mean, it's just one opening and one portal after the next. And we had, the recent, depends when you see the video, but a recent December 4th full moon in Gemini. We have the 12/12 gateway, which is coming up next week. And then we move into the solstice. And then around December 19th, we're going to be aligned directly to the galactic center. And all this activity that's been taking place, in some respects, is very, very magical. It's multidimensional. It's opening up those codes inside of ourselves. But then on the other end, it's making the matrix more visible. And it's also, in some cases, disrupting some of our physical vessel aspects as we temporarily, so it's just temporarily, re-engage with our new codes and our new operating systems. So it can definitely be a lot of stuff to navigate as well too. If you're new to the channel here, thank you for joining. We talk about all sorts of wild topics under the galactic central sun for anything multidimensional and metaphysical. So thank you for joining. So I want to go back to what I was saying there a little bit. So what happens is we have all these ascension symptoms that can come up. So we may have disturbed sleep. We might have needing to be drinking way more water, or we're sleeping way more. It can go on either end of the pendulum in the scales. There could be like sudden heart palpitations that are jolting us to reinstate more space within our heart central frequencies. We might be having more body and muscle twitches. Lights flashing, anyone? That's been happening to me at extremely high levels. All over the place, in public, at my healing space, and more. And when you bring them in, sometimes it's flashing to the point where you're like, is this ever really going to stop at this point? And you're requesting it to come in, and just so much change is happening. The ear tones have been just absolutely majestic lately, but then they're also coming at these increased rates, right? And as we see things more clearly and our frequency does not match up and resonate with the matrix anymore, it can create a bit of a disconnect through friendships, society, different places that we navigate, and then suddenly we realize, well, I'm just going to change my frequency, change my parameters. In a lot of cases, everything else follows suit, but also the matrix still operates, 90% of the entire spectrum right now on this planet. So when we're trying to plug in these new ways that we're navigating and learning, and we have all these like ascension stuff coming in, deep frequencies, it's an adjustment to move through those parameters, because suddenly a whole bunch of items that we're working on, patterns, behaviors, routines, core root, stuff from traumas and beyond, it may come up where there's a whole salad of them, a whole soup coming at the same time. We're getting dosed in liquid light, and at the same time, we're being uplifted to the next level, and it's bringing up all the different aspects of our reality that are wanting to be healed at this time. And to be quite honest, it can seem like a lot. So all these portal days are very magical, and tuning in them and getting the most out of them, taking some altar space, pulling some oracle cards, tapping in with a specific crystal, or any other modality that you use, whether it's breath work, or maybe you're a channeler, or doing downloads by connecting into that frequency and then having it move through your vessel and sharing those pockets of information. Because we're in a space now, we're increasing our light quotient in a deep way, and that was one of the main topics I wanted to talk about today, was unlocking our light quotient, and then also, and how that's increasing right now, and the sacred geometry interweaving that's taking place on this plane of existence. And, ascension processes, when you come from ultra density, it's not always an easy time. It can be quite challenging. I noticed that myself as well, too. I have a good time. I'm Aries, and it's my sun sign, very optimistic. I come in, let's just keep going through the challenges no matter what, but they just keep coming over and over again, right? And that's where energy work and doing different modalities can really support. So if anybody needs a session or anything like that, please reach out to me. I do in-person and long distance as well too. and it's absolutely incredible. Lay on my 5 therapy multi-wave mat. We have decoding time before and after, and when we do this energy work, we're able to then work through all of the different stuff that is then lifting up in our system and coming up at this time. And it's coming from all directions. Sometimes we feel like we have 50 things coming at the same time. It can be pretty intense. It can also be quite magical and illuminating, because then our soul's missions and our soul's purposes start to be magnetized towards us, which is quite wonderful. All this is working for the greater good of the collective and ourselves, but it can be a very challenging time when the majority of beings on the planet are plugged directly still into the mainstream channels, and the mainstream channels right now, energetically, are pretty distorted at this time, and our point of attention has been moved elsewhere. So let's get into the topic for today. So increasing the light quotient within, how this new absorption of light and sacred geometry is moving through us, and how we're interweaving into this timeline. I like to start with the 6th dimension, which is Sirian energies, and that is the weaving of how we bring the sacred geometry and move it into form on this plane of existence here on Earth in 3D. Right? And when we say Sirian, Pleiadian, Orion, Arcturian, and beyond, there's specific, I like to go beyond the word cultures, but there's specific cultures, cosmic cultures that exist within those fractions. And just like any other human or any other being, we come in a wide variety of forms and a wide variety of types within each star system, constellation, dimension, density, wherever we reside. But that Sirian energy of the 6th dimension is the interweaving of the sacred geometry and bringing it down onto the earth plane. And then when we move and upgrade that sacred geometry, then we come into contact with the abilities to know our operating system, because it's made of cellular networks, light codes, and sacred geometry, sound, light, and information, right? And you get into the basis of that sacred geometry, now you're tapped into that resonance factor, it opens itself up, and then all this light and information can come into the earth plane. First off, okay, we get the sacred geometry interwoven, and then we tap into whether it's a dodecahedron, the Merkaba star tetrahedron. We have, what are the other ones? Metatron's cube, Vesica Piscis, flower of life, seed of life, and beyond. And there's lots of humans on the planet right now, through their art and their music and their graphic design and all the different things that they create and how they work in sessions. There's a lot of beings, light workers and transdimensionals, that came to this earth plane that are interweaving sacred geometry into our plane of existence. Because when we weave that into the fabric of our being, then we remove these densities and we become lighter inside, and it's much more easier to navigate on this plane of existence. Not that there's waves of intensity, but the long-term goal is to just shed all that density off and move through it, right? So we are made of all of these versions of sacred geometry, Fibonacci sequence, right? We have the Sri Yantra, so many different forms. And it's the interesting part is it's been encoded into our society, into different civilizations throughout countless timelines on this planet, because it makes up the very fabric of the universe. That's why it keeps returning to form, or we see it in mandala coloring books, right? Or different sacred geometry made into jewelry, on clothing, all sorts of different features like that too. And when energy workers get in deep and they tap into the field and the soul, they can notice this sacred geometry and where it's pulsing, where it's disconnected, and where some other elements can be added into the mix. It's like there's these main forms of sacred geometry that we all come from, but each one's like a blueprint of your fingertip, like your fingerprint. And no two, like a snowflake, are exactly the same. So we take the 6th dimension and those energies and we align ourselves and we tune ourselves directly to them, to call that sacred geometry to move through our very being. Even if we don't see it, by requesting it to come, we'll feel it and see the changes moving through our system. And then we have the 7th dimension, which is the information highways of light. We got a lot of light quotient that's moving back through us. This is, for so long, it's been these ages of, shadow work and darkness, right? And you can see it playing out in society on a regular basis, whether it's constant horror movies coming out and, death metal and the gothic stuff and dressing like this, and any form of expression you want to take, it is the dark and it is the light and everything's meeting together. But there's so much of that heavy stuff. Video games, gotta shoot them, gotta blow them up, gotta kill them. Oh, I lost a life. And when you start to think of all of that stuff coming in onto the planet, right? Even the stuff like the witches and all that. I love the medicine men and women and creatures of this planet Earth. They who work with the earth and all of its medicines. But the word witches, even if we reclaim it, came from the Matrix anyways, right? So we have this massive wave of it, and now we're noticing that the light has been dimmed. So many beings with the EMF and different things going on, having trouble sleeping, going through dark times, dark night of the souls. I love all that stuff, and I think it's an important part of the internal form of creation, because it's all of it combined that makes up the whole. But the light has been dimmed for far too long, and that light is the one that cuts through the shadows, that goes in there and pries it open, so we can then see inside and take a look and go check out what the heck's going on inside. It's pretty amazing stuff. And where are we getting this light from? This is why so much light is coming right now, is because it wants to return into balance, right? And bring that into form in so many days. The death and rebirth cycles, they're all important. But the light is being dimmed so much, and you can see it because so many beings are working indoors, inside, offices, synthetic lighting, and the list goes on and on and on. Not all of us are able to be outside because of our different body temperatures and how we might run really cold. There's different factors at play, but we're migrating much more of that into those kinds of mixes, right? Instead of just opening it up and having all these windows of light coming in and magic and wonder. So we have the seventh dimension, and it carries the informational highways of light. And it gets hyper-activated when we enter the photon band. This frequency range of energy and information of dodecahedrons that gets illuminated when we're in the age of Leo and the age of Aquarius. And those are the two times that Earth enters the photon band with our solar system, thus bringing everything up and all the wonderful items to transmute. I've spoken about this before, but this photonic light comes in and opens up the spaces that we don't normally see. And then it translates through the seventh dimensional highways of light to cascade through and rewire our DNA, rewire our cellular networks, and start to illuminate those parts inside of us. When you have a growing population that's, experiencing, not everyone, but there's lots more depression, melancholy, all sorts of emotional erratic behaviors happening all over the place, and you see it playing out. And even if we transmute and become the light worker within, it still affects our field because it's in our environments. And so that light brings up that joy, that brings up that balance point to keep things, because if you go too far on the other end and you're just only constantly excited all the time, that can also fry the system too, in some ways, right? Or if you're always acting like that and suddenly you're like, I need to pause for a week, but everybody's used to you being like that, then watch all the judgments come out and all the other different things that can take place, or they're not being their usual self. And so the light creates that equilibrium. The light also is healing energy, which moves through our etheric body, our astral body, and connects directly into our core star at the center of our diaphragm, and then cascades that light throughout our entire being. So you got the photonic light going through all the different spaces. You have the informational highways of light from the seventh dimension, which are then turning on all these wisdom centers to reignite, to illuminate, for our divine, innate, authentic truth to be spoken to the world, teaching us a whole array of things, from integrity to patience, to possibly changing how we have a relationship with our food and our nutrients, to want to wake up every day powered up and ready to go and excited for the vibrancy of life, facing challenges with ease, recalibrating our relationship with nature and the natural world. So many different factors, right? And again, natural world, we can still have these civilizations, but they coexist into a whole. So it brings in that additional information, which then gets translated from the galactic central sun. We have our sun, the central sun, galactic central sun, and then the cosmic sun. And I communicate with the galactic central sun on a regular basis, and when we're communicating with it, then that's where that automatic writing starts to come out. We're journaling and it's just flowing through us. We find our own method on how we can communicate it. I might be doing multiple different things. It flows out really potently through the writing aspect. And then when I come on to do these videos, or I'm sharing stuff with my, at workshops, at local markets and stuff like that too, it just flows out. But it didn't always start like this. This was a gradual process of getting to know the galactic central sun, getting to know our sun, being out and letting it illuminate the third eye so that our intuition centers can go through I do like that, like the key click and hold, and it opens that wide up for expression. So we have light coming in that way, and this creates all of these light codes inside of ourselves. The whole visible light spectrum, that's just a fragment of what's out there in reality. We have increased light codes coming because the solar flares and the Schumann resonance is off the charts on a consistent, regular basis. It's like every day's a power day at this point in time, right? And really, in the grand scheme of ascension, we're barely even getting started. And so we bring in all of these extra ascension energies. That rewires the ley lines on the planet. So the energy lines, think of them as like archways. And some of them go underground too, and they come in different forms that then intersect and make power points on the planet. And some humans are really powerful anchor points, and they draw that into them into a specific area to house those energies and bring them forth. And then as we increase this light quotient inside of ourselves, that's when our light body starts to respond. And then it starts to show us where are we in the 12 stages of the light body in terms of our own personal growth and what we're working on. And as that glows more and more, we look younger, we become more vibrant, we're more flexible, and then we're paying attention to our outer environment. We live much longer. We can sense the energies that are distorted in the room. We're much more comfortable with being by ourselves for solo time as well too. We're not out there grasping and seeking, but we know when we want to create something and we make it happen. And this light, when it shines through us really bright, we bring it inside of ourselves, then when we create, draw, make artwork, any form, music, dance, anyways, clothing, however we put that together, architecture, it starts to have a new template that's cascading through us, and it starts to remind us, why am I literally making this? Yes, there's the monetary factor, and I need to pay my bills, but there's a larger sense, and this is how we got into this trap in the first place. I gotta pay my bills. Yeah, immediately we do, but longer term, we want to create something of value, right? Something that can stand the test of time and can be here, that illuminates the energies and the consciousness of this planet. Something that's with eco-cyclical products. Something that can stand as long as a pyramid can, but then at the same time could be dismantled very easily and then inserted back into all of the ecosystems on the planet, right? The animals and the planets are evolving with us too as we up our light quotients. The hue-man is pretty amazing, right? Hue for aura, man, because we come from the man system in Lyra, where this all began in this neck of the woods in this universe. And as we're aware that there's more multiverses, right? More than one universe that make up this universe and others. And we realize that there's so many more ascended masters and archangels, all these beings coming to play, and we start to spin our Merkabas around us and keep it going and oscillating on a regular basis. What happens is we up that light quotient even further, because then it tells the cells how to respond. Is this instantaneous overnight? Heck no. This is a gradual process. And as this light comes in, it tells each cell, like when we're working out in the gym, each time it opens up that little bit more and it's able to handle more. The difference with this one is it has an infinite amount of growth of where it can go. It's pretty incredible. And this light interacts with the sacred geometry that holds the forms of us. My fingers, my toes, my organs, this room. It's all carrying sacred geometry. half my vision, I don't know if I've mentioned this to everyone, but half my vision since I was a child, 50% of it is particles. And I see it now. I can still see the screen, but I can see all the particles dancing, moving through the field, right? Kind of like when you're filming with a camera and you don't have enough light in the room and you see all the dots. I see like gazillions more of that on a regular basis. So when I'm working on sessions, I can see these light quotients growing in different spots of the human vessel, right? And so when we send it into our core star, which it's just going to be drawn into there naturally, expands out to our light body, then it gets filtered on where it needs to go, which then helps us create a stronger aura, keeps dis-ease at bay, and tones our nervous system. But once we realize all of these things, and even for those beings who are deep along these pathways, right? They're tapped in, oh yes, the gamma rays are coming. Whew, there's been so much extra, far infrared on the planet, and we're going through the ultraviolet rays and the whole bit, and we're called to be out in the sunshine more often. Once you have that realization, then you look around, and unless you're kind of living off grid, and in the forest, for a large chunk of us humans, we realize that there's EMF everywhere, all this dirty electricity, and all this other stuff pulsating into our field on a regular basis. Regardless, we want to be aware of that stuff, but we do want to point our attention as much as possible into what we want to create, because this light helps us become creators on a very deep level. And sometimes as a light worker, you got to go into these darkest spots where it seems like no change is happening, and you just keep going up against a wall. You're bringing those frequencies for that potential one day for this stuff to illuminate and move through, right? And the sacred geometry is both really small microbes, smaller than the nanoparticles, as this photonic energy moves through, touches the sacred geometry, but then our body also has a larger one that it makes up as a whole. And as we bring in this geometry, then we start to change the interface of the planet so that we can rewire it to prepare for those new earth energies, transformation, and metamorphosis within. Your subtle bodies will thank you on a very deep level, because even the water that we're drinking, especially when it's living water, right, structured water, or the foods we eat, like you cut open a pomegranate and you look at it and it's totally from another dimension. And it's like that Fibonacci fractal sequence that is going on inside. So when you affect that sacred geometry inside of you, you're affecting it in your environment, so that the air you drink, or the air you breathe and the water you drink, it's changing its form before it gets to you, right? Of course, there's still the responsibility of what we're doing in terms of to our water systems and all the chemicals and stuff that's all over the planet, right? But it's amazing what an illuminated human can do. And to activate that sacred geometry inside of ourselves, then that's when we lean into our metaphysical practices. Certain tuning forks, DNA forks will open those centers up. Breath work is a great way to then visualize and seeing it being overlaid on top of your body, because we are getting 12th dimensional and 9th dimensional templates on a consistent, regular basis. Basically since 1994, on the 1212 gateway, right? When we were able to take that energy around the globe, around this sphere, around this plane of existence, this toroidal, in any perspective of how you choose to see it, right? It has infinite different forms that can take, but this plane of existence, we interlocked it into the outer morphogenetic field so that can get rewired back into the planet, right? Why are so many beings like attracted to wanting to go to these warm places in the winter? Yeah, because it feels more comfortable, but they're attracted to the sun and the sun's rays, and when we emit those rays, it detoxifies the environment around us. You put your clothing up out in front of the sun, right? And it detoxes itself. It's pretty amazing. And light is a carrier of wisdoms and information, and it interacts directly with the Akashic records as well too. And these sacred geometries come in all different forms, and they're intermixing with light codes because they're alive. All of this stuff is hyper alive. It is living, breathing consciousness that flows through the very makeup of the universe. It's beyond a computer, but it's basically the ultimate computer holographic creation, right? Spirit realm, and then you have this multiverse going on of all of these avatar vessels moving through. So we have light coming in from so many different directions. That's why they call it the light workers, right? It's not that we're going to hide ourselves behind love and light, which the love frequency and light as a frequency is pretty magical. But we got to get real here. This is like one intense timeline shift. And light is opening up those timelines and showing us the geometry that was interwoven into them in that present moment. Some majestic, where we find star schools and other Star Nation civilizations, and the magic and the wonder of how much beauty there was in the forest and how much medicines and healing are there, and the lands. And then on other ends, we're finding all sorts of like entities and attachments and cords and cord cutting and ethereal implants and all sorts of stuff coming up. And the two are coming together in a big way. But this age of Aquarius is really about awareness, rewiring the civilization, massive advancements in technology, and upping the light quotient within as the great return of the metaphysical modalities in a new, inventive way. There's tens of thousands of these modalities out, and myself and others are just going on these epic quests to create coherence in the human vessel, and they end up creating all sorts of brand new modalities, some based on things that came before it, and taking it to that next octave. Sacred geometry is absolutely incredible. Thanks for listening to the broadcast today, everyone. If anybody needs any of my services, I will put my contact information down at the end of the video. Just reach out, even if you want to have a consult call for 20 minutes. I'll arrange a time to do that with you. Long distance, I do it live on the Zoom interwebs. And I do this session exactly like you were at the Star Temple. I'm lifting off the blanket, putting the pillows, rotating, headrest comes up. We do it exactly like you're here. And in person is absolutely phenomenal. This is an amazing space. And if anybody's ready to go through the healing process, and even if you're working on one specific thing, I had a childhood trauma, or I want to rewire my nervous system, whatever you're thinking, just reach out. There's some sacred medicines that are here for you. My average sessions are an hour and 45 minutes. And just head over to my website, and it's got all the divine information that you need. I even have a new booking site on there too. So you can go in there directly, and you can see what sessions I have open for the week, and feel free to book in, even on the fly. I think I have a 6-hour window that I need to know by the time somebody books in. So you can book in on the fly, or just reach out to me in email, and I can book you in manually. And of course, if anybody's watching this, I do have a monthly newsletter. I call it the Astral Newsletter, and it gets sent out once a month, and it has an energy report in it as well too. So if you'd like to join that one, there's a sign-up form on my website, or send me your email, and the Cosmic Messenger 33@gmail.com, and I will place you on the newsletter. So take care, everyone. We'll talk to you again soon.